call your foes up.
My name is Ross LeBlanc. I'm a trial lawyer at Dudley DeBosier. I'm also a husband, a father, and a brother. And today we're going to be talking about whether you even need a lawyer in the first place. So here's some things that you might want to consider if you've been involved in a crash and you're thinking, do I really need a lawyer? First thing I do when somebody hires me is I interview the client that called and hired. So it could be a phone call, it could be face-to-face, I would rather that. But in a phone call, I want to understand what's important to this person. Why did they call and hire a lawyer? It may just be, I'm hurt, my car is damaged, I need help figuring out things to do. But it may be other things that aren't really clear from the file when I first get it. Whenever you first get into a crash, the other company or the driver or their insurance company may call you and ask a lot of questions. Some people feel uncomfortable answering those questions because they don't know exactly why they're being asked, or they don't have all the information yet. When you hire a lawyer, the insurance company, the trucking company, they can't contact you anymore. Everything has to come through the attorney. So that's one way that the person is protected, because you don't have to get asked a bunch of questions. You may not understand what's important about those questions. Whenever we get the case, we send a letter to the insurance companies and the trucking companies saying preserve evidence. It's called a preservation letter. And if they don't, if they destroy evidence like throw away the video or crash speed data, then later in court we can argue that that evidence would have been bad for the company and that's why they threw it away. So one thing that we do is we send a letter asking them to preserve it because we really want to see it, and we can go do an inspection of the vehicle. I use investigators in my practice. A lot of these people are former police officers or current police officers, and they can go download data from a vehicle, take pictures, visit the crash scene where there may still be evidence of what happened. There could be marks on the roadway showing how a crash happened or what vehicle came from which way. And we could go out and try to find video and other witnesses to the crash. Just last week, I had trouble finding some reports, and I called contacts I had in the police department to help me find the report and got it a lot quicker. Because I've been doing this for 15 years, I've formed some relationships with different investigating agencies. We volunteer with them, and we have contacts to help us get things quicker. I do have investigators. I can file lawsuits and send subpoenas. I can send letters with a law firm letterhead saying, please preserve this evidence for me. And some people, when they get a phone call or a letter from a lawyer, they're likely to respond a little bit quicker. Whenever somebody gets involved in a crash, whether it's with a truck or any other vehicle, we wonder how much insurance coverage is there out there that we could recover for this person. Because I've seen some people hurt very, very badly and there's no insurance or very limited insurance. When it involves a big truck, you could have a whole lot of insurance, but that doesn't mean the case is worth that because the person may not be seriously injured. One thing that we want to know is, did this person have a job that was impacted? Did this person have a family or other personal hobbies that were impacted that they lost because of this crash? Or were there medical bills, were there lost wages? Because the economic stuff is pretty easy to calculate. Did you lose money? We can add that up. How did this affect your life? That takes getting to know the person, talking to witnesses, finding out exactly what happened in the crash. How could they have been hurt? You know, it may be that the crash looks small or it looks very serious, and that doesn't always determine whether the person was injured, you know, and so we have to look a little bit closer. I investigate the person's prior medical history by talking to their doctors, ordering those records, and we look at all the scans and tests we can find. We can compare a case to past cases and say, well, I've gotten this similar result on other cases, so this case is more like in a range for that. And that's one way that we determine the value of a case. I would say if you're unsure whether you need an attorney or not, it's best to call because calling's free and you don't pay the lawyer anything up front to investigate the case. There are many cases that we investigate and then we don't bring the case, either because the person decides they don't want to bring it or we don't find enough evidence to bring the case. So I think a lot of people don't really know about that, but calling's free and you can call up and say, here's what happened to me, what do you think? Now, you know yourself best. If you're really not hurt, then you probably don't really need a lawyer. And that's the best way to find out if you need a lawyer or not. If you are injured or if you're having trouble navigating how to deal with the insurance company, how to cover your lost wages, how you're going to get medical treatment, who's going to fix your car, call a lawyer and you can ask them those questions for free. Nowadays, the main thing I see is people relying on ChatGPT and other AI tools where that information is not always correct. So I'll see letters written by people through ChatGPT and the law is incorrect. The information is completely incorrect, and that can tank your case because it's obvious to these sophisticated insurance companies that you're using those programs and that they're giving you false information. That's one of the things I always find out. The number one thing I wish I could rewind back for more clients to do is to take pictures at the scene of the crash. I'm not there when the crash happens, so I don't know where the vehicles were, what they looked like, and if you don't take pictures while you're there, then you never get that opportunity again. I can order the body camera footage and see what the police officer saw, but sometimes the vehicles have been moved. And I know it's not always on people's mind when they get into a crash to take the photographs, but for those clients that do take the photographs, I'm always very appreciative that they took them. Because lawyers know the rules of evidence and know what it has to look like to get admitted into trial, lawyers will gather evidence in a certain way to make sure it's admissible. You can have all sorts of things that you heard people say. That doesn't mean that means the evidence is coming into trial. It might be hearsay, it might be excluded on a bunch of other grounds. And if you have evidence that can't get admitted into trial, it's worthless. So a lawyer is going to gather evidence with the eye of how can this be admitted into trial. And insurance companies are fully aware of whether that evidence is coming in or not, and that's going to affect the value of the case. If you're wondering if you should even hire a lawyer, just call, because we want you to call us, and calling is free. It doesn't cost anything to call us and ask, do I have a case, or here's what's going on. And I'm happy to give free advice to plenty of people who don't need a lawyer but just have questions about what do I do in this situation, and we're happy to help. You can call us anytime. There are big cases and there are little cases. We have plenty of lawyers here that are able to help you with any size case or any issue that you have. If it involves a crash, if it involves an injury and it's important to you, then it's important to us. If you or a loved one has been hurt in a crash, call Dudley DeBosier. We're here for Louisiana and we're here for you.
Throw your foes up.